To get this thing to go in here, time after time, I put a notch, a little notch, index notch, and that notch will fit right here on the end of the bed. And that takes care of it on the right side. It locates it, it indexes it. To make this level, see how much it sits off the vise bed. So I made this block. This little block will sit underneath here and will fasten to this temporarily, just a couple drops of glue. And when you set that on this notch and on this block and tighten those down, that makes this thing sit perfectly level, because all my milling has to start from this surface and go down and back. So I'm gonna glue this in and leave it overnight. Now this also has a little notch. There's a little bitty notch, a little hook right there that'll hook on the front edge, on the right side edge of this vise bed. I'm gonna put 4 little drops of glue. This thing will stay on there as long as I need it to be on there. When I need to get rid of it, I can just tap it with a chisel and it'll knock off of there. So then I'm going to push this down, tighten that clamp, check it, very good. Turn out the lights. Party's over. This is the next morning, taking this stock blank out of the mill vise. I'm checking my spacer block. I've got 4 little tabs of glue on the corners. Each corner I glued it with 4 places. And it's got, you can see a little gap in between it, but the glue itself is stuck, and it's there enough to hold it. It's going to only be there for a few days, and then I'm going to knock it off. Now, you may have noticed that this block is a little thinner than the stock, and the reason for that is I didn't want the jaws of the vise holding the block only. I wanted them holding the stock, so I thinned this down about 1/16. All right, now I'm going to take the action out of the original stock and lay it on here. I've got my trigger position marked from when I first laid it out. Sometimes I take a scope off to do this, and sometimes I don't. It depends on, this is my gun, so I can trust myself to be careful enough to leave the scope on there. If it's another person's gun and it's a really expensive scope and I'm not want to take any kind of chance, then I'll pull the scope off or have them do it. Okay. Barrels usually sit halfway down into the stock. I've got my trigger location marked right there, so I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to make a mark where this lug goes, because that's also a very critical, definite. I can see that very easily. That impact lug is one of the things that's bedded, because that's what takes the shock of it. Now, I'm going to measure the diameter of the end of this barrel, where the barrel meets the end of the stock, rather. I'm going to take a diameter of that. And that is 727. 0.727 at the end where the wood meets, the barrel meets the end of the wood. So half of 727 is 3513. So that's half of that. And I'm going to make me a mark that deep. Except doing it left-handed is not a good thing. So that's how deep the barrel sits down in the barrel bed. So I have three crucial marks: trigger location, depth of barrel, and my lug. Now I'm going to do an outline, keeping this lined up with those three marks. Now this is a straight line across the bottom of this receiver. So I'm going to make a mark here and a mark here and connect that with a straight edge. Now this is the bottom of my barrel. This is my trigger group. And this hole here will punch out where the trigger and the trigger group can sit down, and the trigger will punch all the way through to the bottom. And that's the first cut I make. I make a straight line across the bottom of the receiver. It's a really simple rifle. Extremely simple rifle. Now I'm going to put a center line down the middle of this all the way around. So this is my profile. The profile of the gun sitting down in the stock. I've got a line for my barrel. I've got my lug, which comes down, the receiver, the trigger group comes down and punches out through on the bottom, and then the receiver keeps coming back, and then there's my mounting lug right there. All these lines can be refined later. This is just an initial layout for cutting, but this trigger group is the first thing I do. And I was just noticing this one is not centered. The trigger is centered, but the trigger group has got some bolts sticking out on the side of it, so well, part of it's the safety sitting on the side. And so I'm going to have to mill this out off center. It's going to be slightly off to one side. The channel, the hole for it is going to be slightly off to one side by about a 1/16. Mainly for the safety. The safety sits on this side of it. So, back over to the mill. I'm just going to guess at that. Put a little mark, come from the other side, put a little mark, and they line up. So I'm going to go all the way around it, putting a nice center line. This will all be cut out or sanded off later. But it is a reference that I will use through almost the entire stock making process, because I will constantly be referring to that center line. I got my trigger located. It's a 1/2 inch wide, and just bring these marks around to there. That's the hole the trigger comes out of. Now I'm drawing the outline of the top. I've measured the diameter of this receiver. It's perfectly round on the bottom. It's a round mill from right there at the back of that lug all the way out the back end. Well, thanks for choosing to spend your time here with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this program. I'll try to post a new segment each weekend. In addition, if you'd like to read about a stock that I made and then it took a 20-foot free fall, click on the link at the bottom of this page. It's called The Broken Gun. It's a story I wrote a few years ago about my 2 boys. Sometimes life's hard and things get broken. Now and then we get a chance to fix them. I'm so grateful for the opportunity I had to repair this broken stock. It led to a restoration that I never could have imagined. As always, if you like this video, please click the like button and share this with your friends. Have a great day.